Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started and introduce Matt Will. My name is Britt Stouffer. I am the chair of the Estates and Trusts Committee for Baltimore County Bar Association. Thanks, Rachel, for supporting us this afternoon. I asked Matt to present today based on a survey of our membership. Other attorneys wanting to know more about the PPP program. And now that we have a second round of PPP, I thought it would be very valuable for our membership to learn a little bit about what the requirements are, but also meet someone who does this almost on a daily basis for not only members in Baltimore County, but all across Maryland. So Matt Will, he's vice president of Orrstown Business Banking. He has been banking, he's been in banking for over 15 years in the Maryland area. He is not just a banker, but rather a valued business partner. Matt really brings an expertise in a variety of business segments. He works with brand new businesses all the way up to business succession. So I'd like to thank you all for attending today, and please welcome Matt Will.
Thank you, Britt. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. And can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So, yes, thank you, Britt. So I have been doing PPP loans for the last, it's almost up to a year now. So I did, we worked through the first round and then the second funding of the first round, and now our bank is currently working on the second round and second draws for these. So we had done a presentation throughout our footprint a few weeks ago, and this is what I have here. So I'm going to use this as a reference as I go through, talk a little bit about the program and some other programs in the area that might benefit both you and your clients. The PPP program, you read a lot of stuff online. It isn't as complicated as it sometimes seems. And I think a lot of people, especially in the first round, did not take advantage of it because they were worried about whether they qualified, is it too complicated, and then about the forgiveness process. So we have gone through forgiving loans from the first round. The SBA has made some changes to that as well with this second bill. So we will continue to go through that. So there's a better understanding of how this process works and what the SBA is going to be looking for when you come to forgiveness. So hopefully I can answer any questions that you have as we go through here. And again, if I've been working in this area for, like Britt said, 15 years in the Maryland area, all across the footprint. So hopefully I'm able to help some of you and give you some valuable information. That is not me. So this is the reason why this is not a customized is because we are a bank, these have to get approved by legal. And so I'm using someone else's within the bank that's already been approved. So in the first round, Orrstown Bank actually helped more than 3,200 businesses. That is a picture of our senior vice president, Luke Bernstein, who got to go to the White House because of the efforts we did in the first round. So just to give everybody a little background of what and who Orrstown Bank is, we are a full commercial bank, but we are a community bank. So we are about $2.4 billion in assets. So as far as a community bank, we are on the larger size, but not large enough that I have a fear that we're going to be acquired by a larger institution. So we have the capabilities of very large institutions, but the people and community touch that you want from a community bank. So we do not have, we do have a call center, but that is not where we funnel our clients through. And in this process, that has been something that we have seen great feedback on, is that you are not submitting these into a black hole website and not hearing from anybody in 2 weeks. You actually get a relationship manager that walks you through the process. And that's what I've done with probably this second round, about over 100 clients so far. So it makes the process easier and makes it much better. And that's why we've seen success from this, both in the first round and the second round. So the first CARES Act was passed in March of 2020 that gave us the first round of PPP. And we went through the two fundings of that, which ended in the beginning of August, and started to work on the forgiveness piece. And I'll talk about forgiveness because not only is that important to know whether you want to take advantage of this loan, but you might have clients as well that have some questions about forgiveness and might be stuck on that. The second round was passed in a bill in December. And $284 billion were put into the second PPP fund. As of last week, there were still about $184 billion left in the fund. And the fund will go to the end of March. So anybody who hasn't decided to go ahead, you still have time. And there's some ways that we've limited, or the SBA has limited, companies being able to take large chunks of this, like they did in the first round. So again, the idea behind this is that the SBA wants to keep people employed. So whether you have employees or not, they still want you to be able to be employed. And a lot of this is freeing up some of those funds that you would be using to meet payroll, or some of the other qualified expenses, to allow you to keep your business running, grow your business, again, contribute to the economy. So that is really the theory behind this. Businesses are now capped at $10 million overall. So I'm sure everybody read the articles in the first round of the very large companies that took huge chunks of PPP funds and didn't necessarily need it. That is something that the SBA came back and fixed. So no more, you can't get a more aggregate than $10 million, and no more than $2 million for a second draw. Funds can be used either in an 8 to 24 week period. So that is your forgiveness period. Most people that I have worked with have used the 24-week forgiveness period, just because it does allow you to use those funds because of the way that the loan is calculated. And secondly, it does help make forgiveness a little easier, which I will touch on later. Multiple banks have different criteria to be able to apply through them. Orrstown Bank has not excluded anybody. You just have to be a business within our footprint. So that would encompass Maryland or Pennsylvania. And you do not have to be a current client at this point. So one thing we do ask, that as you do work with us, and if you do decide to go through us or refer a client to go with us, is we would ask that we would be given the opportunity to try to win your banking business. Again, that is not a requirement of it, but we do ask for just a verbal agreement that after we are done with the program, we can talk to you a little more about what Orrstown Bank can do for you. Again, through this process, you work with an individual, both on the application, funding, and forgiveness of the loan. So again, you do not have to do this all yourself. You have experts like myself who are able to help you throughout the process. So we have not only been using business bankers, commercial lenders like myself, but also our branch managers have been helping out with this as well. So we've touched, I think we're almost to 2,000 apps at this point. So, and we continue to add them every day. Biggest question is, are you eligible? So, couple different simple ways to see if you're eligible. If you have W-2 employees, you are eligible. If you are a partnership and file a K-1 and claim income on your K-1 in box 14A, you are eligible to use that. If you're a sole proprietor, independent contractor, or single member LLC that files a Schedule C, you are also eligible. And this talks about it again. To apply and use employees' income, they have to be W-2 employees. So if you have a client that has a company that uses 1099s for their employees, the company can apply, but they cannot use that. They cannot use the income they're paying their 1099s. Those individual independent contractors would have to apply on their own because they are considered entities by the SBA. And again, that is something that you can talk to one of our representatives or myself about this to see if you qualify or not. As you apply for this, there are certifications you have to make, and this is actually in reference to the second draw here is a snapshot of what that looks like. And I will touch on that in a minute. So first draw, you can still apply for either first or second draw in this round. So if you did not take advantage of the first draw PPP that came out in April of last year and went through the beginning of August, you can apply again. We've seen a lot of people that, again, didn't take advantage of it because they weren't sure whether they were eligible, just due to capacity issues. A lot of sole proprietors, independent contractors just didn't take advantage or couldn't get their applications through before that portal closed. So the only criteria is the business had to have been open and operating as of February 15th, 2020. And it has not been closed since then. So, and the SBA has gone back and they are checking that this time, but as long as you were incorporated and can show some sort of business activity as of February 15th, 2020, you are eligible. No more than 500 employees. And again, it's kind of redundant, but you cannot have taken advantage of a first draw PPP if you're applying for a first draw. So that's pretty self-explanatory. The second draw, again, has the no more than 300 employees. You must have used the funds from the first draw prior to applying for a second draw. So you don't necessarily have to have that loan forgiven, but you do have to have used those funds. So you couldn't have gotten the loan, put it in a savings account, closed your business down, and come back again and ask for another loan. You have to attest to that as one of those certifications as you have used those funds. The SBA finds out that you haven't. It will void the guarantee and the forgiveness piece of that loan. So that is something as I talk to clients as they're applying, just to ensure that we are applying correctly. Also, for the second draw, you have to prove that you had at least a 25% reduction in gross revenue from 2019 to 2020, either on an annual or quarter-to-quarter basis. So, for example, if you use quarter 2 of 2019 compared to quarter 2 of 2020, when we were in the lockdown, that is where most companies have used that just as a frame of reference to show at least that 25% reduction. If you go into a quarter-to-quarter comparison, you do not have to show every other quarter in the year. You just have to show that single quarter. Again, the idea here through this program is to get money out into the economy and give businesses some extra capital. So even if you saw growth in the third and fourth quarter, you can still apply. For the first draw, if you did not take advantage, you do not have to show any sort of revenue reduction to get a first draw. It is implied as a small business that you did have a revenue reduction to get that first draw. So you do not have to prove that. Again, one of the criteria with the PPP program is that all the employees or owners of the business need to be in the United States. So no foreign workers can be used to pay this. It will void your forgiveness. So that's one of the questions that I've been asked through several types of businesses. If you have clients that are restaurants, things like that, they might hire seasonal workers who come from overseas. They cannot use that to pay them unless they are American citizens. Again, unless you're a very large company, we probably won't run into these limits. But again, overall, you can't have more than $10 million now in PPP funds, and for the second draw, you can't have more than $2 million. The loan amount is calculated using your payroll information. So if you have employees and they're W-2 employees, probably the easiest thing we use to calculate information or calculate your loan amount would be either your 940s or 941s, your tax forms, your federal tax forms. The SBA is requiring, as we look at it, you can only use full 2019 or full 2020 information to calculate your loan. During the first round, you were able to do a 12-month rolling period. The SBA excluded that for second draws and new first draws. So it has to be within a calendar year. So really simple math here is we take that amount, we add it up for the year, we divide it by 12, you multiply it by 2.5, there is your loan amount. If you file a Schedule C, we're going to look at that net income amount in your Schedule C, line 31, and we're going to go about and do the same thing. There's a couple nuances with this. You cannot count more than $100,000 of income per employee or owner. So that's capped at that. So if you are a single owner LLC or Schedule C, your loan's going to be capped at $20,833. That's the highest amount you can get. If you have any clients that are restaurants, they are actually able in the second draw to get 3.5 times their average monthly payroll. So you can, just to clarify, your first round loan and your second draw loan can be different amounts. So I have had multiple clients who actually ended up having larger payrolls in 2020 just because different reasons of having to increase salaries to get employees to come back to work. Depending on what industry they were in, some had an expansion in the third and the fourth quarter. So if payroll does go up, those two numbers do not have to match, and that is not a trigger for the SBA to decline a loan if the numbers are different. And we do provide a worksheet for your clients. So if they need help trying to figure this out, it's really simple. It helps and it does it for them. If not, I have done this for multiple clients. So I've asked for the information I need to send it over. I help them calculate that loan amount and get it in. And this just shows some examples of what I'm talking about. Again, I work with every client through the entire application process. So if you're confused, again, most small business owners will never apply for this, have never applied for a loan. So you do not have to be an expert in this. And I think that was part of the reason why a lot of people who didn't take advantage of the first round were worried about that piece because they've never looked at that before. So we can certainly do that. And how our application process works is everything's done through a secured portal. So sending in documentation for us to verify loan amounts is all done through a portal. Our documents are now e-signed, where the first round we had a different format. From time of application, it's usually taking about 2 days once the application is complete to get approved by the SBA, and then from that, less than 5 days for funding. So within a week, from time of application, we are able to get those funds into your hands. One other piece with how we are doing the loans at Orrstown to get funds out as quickly as possible. The one thing we are doing is anybody who applies for us, we are having you open a free business checking account, and that is how we are getting those funds to you. So once you sign the note for the PPP loan, we are depositing that money into that free Orrstown account. You do not have to keep that money in there. If you want to transfer it to your current bank, you can do that. But it does make it quicker than us trying to wire funds out to different banks or ACH them, which between institutions, depending on how that is done, can take up to 2 to 3 days. The other piece with this that it did not mention in this slide is that if you got a first round draw with a bank, you do not have to use that same bank for your second draw. The only information you need from that first bank would be the SBA loan number and that amount of the first draw PPP. Other than that, you do not need to go through that first bank. So, and we've, again, gotten a lot of clients who went through their first bank and have decided, A, that the first bank was slow getting that program out, or they just didn't like the experience. They wanted to work with an individual, and that's what we can offer. So again, you do not have to use the same bank that you used the first time. The other piece that I think was kind of a deterrent in the first round was people were not sure what was eligible, what you could use it for, and what would be forgiven. So generally, most people have used it for payroll. So in theory, your loan amount is 2.5 times, so 2.5 months of your average monthly payroll. The forgiveness period is 24 weeks or 6 months. In theory, if you're using payroll over those 24 weeks, it should more than use up that PPP amount. But as you're using the funds, at least 60% of that has to go towards payroll. So just to give you a very high overview, when we were doing forgiveness apps in the first round, and the SBA has actually paused their forgiveness program until they will restart it in March again. But the SBA actually came back to the banks and said, if you can have your clients just show that they used it for payroll, please do that, because it will speed up the forgiveness process and will require less paperwork. So when you get a loan, you use it up, those 24 weeks expire. If you used it for payroll or can prove that your payroll during that period was a larger amount than your loan amount, we would ask for just a payroll report for that 24-week period, and we can use that for forgiveness. One of the pieces here, and I will go on this a little further, I will talk about forgiveness because there's different criteria for loans over 150 and loans under 150. So payroll expenses include salaries, wages, tips, commissions, and employee benefits. So if you pay healthcare costs, the company pays healthcare costs. Also retirement costs as well. So if the company is contributing to that, that falls into that payroll expense piece. You can also use it, and these are some new eligible expenses that were not in the first round. Mortgage interest, rent, utilities, worker protection costs, so PPE, supplier costs, and expense for operations. So that's basically most business expenses. You can use 40% of that for that. There are some caveats to that. So for utilities, rent, mortgage interest, you can't go out and get a mortgage right now and then use PPP funds to pay it. Those would have had to have been in place as of February 15th, 2020. So if you get PPP funds, you can't go out and install a new Comcast high-speed internet. You have to use what was in place at that time. These are, you all do not need to know about that. That is why you have bankers for this. There are, the IFRs, which are the laws that the SBA put out for us, talks about some of this tax deductibility, which I would recommend contacting your accountant for that, increase to existing PPP loans. So one simple thing, the forgiveness amount, once your loan is forgiven, it does not count as income for your business. It is a separate income piece. So I have had accountants reach out to me for that. And the PPP expenses are tax deductible. So that was something that was put in there. for this as well. So forgiveness is something that everybody wants to know about these, because you don't want to take on more debt and have to make a payment. So I have, knock on wood, have not had one application that's come back from the SBA and not have been forgiven. So as long as you use it for the acceptable purposes, it should be no problem. And then, so in this second rule that came out in December, the SBA actually changed some of its forgiveness criteria. So loans under 150,000 will have a one-page certification to get forgiveness. So, and it's going to ask for some very simple information: number of employees, the estimated total amount of loans spent on payroll costs, the total loan amount, and you have to attest to the standard PPP attestations, which are, I used it for the acceptable purposes. I am not a known felon. I didn't default on PP, or I didn't commit fraud during this. Very simple stuff. So what that basically means, if you get a loan under $150,000, you use it for payroll, you attest to the form, it will be forgiven. So this is free money. So for the second draw, you have to prove a revenue reduction. For the first draw, you do not. So if you did not take advantage of the first draw, I would recommend that you do, because it is free money. The government doesn't usually give out free money to small businesses. So this is something that I would say take advantage of. Take advantage of this. And again, with the forgiveness process, if you get your loan through Orstown Bank, you will work with us to get it forgiven. And we are hoping to use the same formatted system for the forgiveness process going forward that we are using currently for the loan application. So it's an e-sign system. It's very simple to use than some of the past systems we were using. So, however, if you cannot use this for all payroll expenses, here is a list of some of the covered operations expenses. So payment for software, cloud, human resource, accounting needs, those are all considered covered operation expenses. Damage costs. So I'm not sure anybody in this area had this, but again, I'm not sure. So any costs related to property damage due to public disturbances in 2020, you can use this for. Supplier costs, so purchase orders, orders for goods that were placed prior to taking out the loan, and then again, any PPPE expenses or changes that you had to invest, plexiglass, masks, hand sanitizer, things like that can also be used for this. Go through this. So the other piece is some organizations are now eligible that were not during the first round. So there were some changes. So housing cooperatives, so homeowners associations, housing groups. I have been contacted by several in the Maryland area that had expenses and payroll, but were not able to take advantage of the first round. So business leagues, chambers of commerce. So any of those clients that you've had that you don't think that weren't able to take advantage in the first round are now eligible, and they use the same criteria to do that. Also, news organizations are eligible as well that were not eligible in the first round. So another piece, so there is a program, and I'll talk about this very briefly. So there's a economic injury disaster loan that is offered directly through the SBA. This is something that you can apply in along with the PPP first and second draw. This is a loan that can be used for some of those other expenses that are not covered in there. So business expansion, people have used it for debt consolidation. That is direct through the SBA and is funded through them. So that is a more traditional loan. However, that loan is a 30-year loan fixed at 3.75, and the first 12 months of that loan are deferred. So if you're looking for inexpensive capital and haven't taken advantage of that, I would recommend applying for that. You would just go to the SBA website, which is at sba.gov, search for EIDL, and then you can apply for that. So part of that loan was also a grant piece. So you were able to get $1,000 per employee. That was a grant that was not instantaneous, but very quick turnaround time. Initially, as loans were being forgiven, this was not a forgiven amount by the SBA. So if you got a first round loan, applied for forgiveness, and were told that because you got an EIDL grant that you could not get full forgiveness, that has actually been repealed, and the SBA is coming back to the banks and paying off those grants. So you can, if you got it through another institution, you will be getting made whole from that. And going forward, you do not have to take that into consideration, because it was kind of, hey, it's a grant, but it's not a grant. You still end up having to pay it back. That was fixed in this second bill, with some feedback, with a lot of feedback from many small businesses and financial institutions that did not agree with that. So again, the second draw, the loan is calculated the same as the first draw. Sometimes it'll be the same amount. Like I said, there are other nuances. You can use 2020 data. So if employee costs increase, we can use that. So the SBA is doing a little more due diligence on this round than they were in the first round. So we have seen multiple errors and feedback from the SBA as we're doing these loans. Everything from needing to verify an address, to verifying a loan amount, to EIN numbers, to when the business started. So with this, the SBA, and we've done a pretty good job with this. We actually have an internal team that is only dealing with these errors or further information requests from the SBA to get these turned around. I've read some horror stories online where people put loans in with banks and they have just sat there at the SBA, which means that they can't go anywhere else to get the loan fixed, because once it's in at the SBA, you can't apply again. So we've been able to work around these issues with the SBA. The only ones that we kind of have to wait is if your current loan is under review by the SBA. If your first draw loan is under review by the SBA and we put in a second draw, there is nothing we can do other than wait for them to complete their review of the first draw. They will not request information from either the financial institution or the borrower. It is an internal review that the SBA is conducting. And it's a random review, so it has nothing to do with the validity of your business or your loan. I have actually 2 clients at this point who are still in the middle of an audit for this. So their loan is sitting there. Once it's completed, it will be hopefully approved, and then we'll fund it. So again, some of these are just patient, and we work with the borrower to let them know about this. So one of the pieces for the second draw loan is, again, you have to show that 25% revenue reduction. Generally, under $150,000, you do not have to show that proof up front to apply for the loan. But it will be asked for that forgiveness piece, is what we're being told by the SBA. I am asking for it up front just so we have that on file. So as you apply for forgiveness, you don't have to provide us any extra information. One piece with this, so how they're looking at that is it's just looking at gross receipts from your business operations. So if you received grants or PPP funds, those don't count into that piece. So it's purely from business operation. One thing the SBA is asking, though, is if the most common piece is people are doing a profit and loss, either an annual comparison or, like I said, a quarter-to-quarter comparison. The SBA does ask that each page of that be signed and dated by the business owner. So that is the attestation for that piece of it. Like I said, it's not required under $150,000, but if you apply through us, and definitely with me, I'm confirming with you before we go ahead that you do have that 25% reduction, because we don't want to get to the forgiveness piece and say, oh, I don't really have it. And then you're going to have to pay a loan back. And the other piece is you're also attesting on that application that you do have that. So we want to confirm either with your accountant or your bookkeeper that you can show that piece of it. Again, for independent contractors, if you're a 1099 or you have clients that are 1099s, that's very simple. I mean, gross income plus cost of goods sold, or if it's 1099, you compare the two 1099s. If they're down by 25%, you qualify. So that kind of talks about our portal. So again, how this works. If you or one of your clients would be interested in a PPP loan, we like to have a conversation with them first, just to explain the program, ask some questions, get an understanding of what we're looking at here. And then once we do that, we build the application in a system. It's SageWorks that we use. It's a very easy system to use. We build the application. We send an email out to the borrower. In there is a link for them to log in, set up a user ID and password to complete the application, upload any required documentation, and then you're going to e-sign within this system. The great thing about this online application is that as bankers, we can get in the application with you as well. So if you are not computer literate, not computer savvy, and need help, I've done this for probably 20 clients so far. Get on the phone with them. We complete the application together and send out the documents to e-sign. Takes 10 minutes and is a much easier process. Several of the larger banks out there, it's an online system. There isn't a help number to do this. So again, you do not have to be a computer expert to get these loans. And again, this is a right out of what I just spoke about. Again, most of this, if you're dealing with me as the relationship manager, I'm gonna help you through this process. So I have spoken for a lot of time here. So does anybody have any questions, any specific questions that I can answer while you have me here? Again, I think between the two rounds, I've done over 200 loans. So there probably hasn't been something I haven't seen yet, but if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Matt, so if anyone has any clients or they themselves are interested in applying, you can ask them all the preliminary questions ahead of time to make sure that they're not just applying and that they're going to get rejected. You know exactly what they're going to need in order to get this second round or even first round.
Correct. So one of the ways Orrstown has done this differently than several of the other financial institutions is there was really no quality check as people are applying, whether they apply or not. I have talked to multiple clients who, as they went to get forgiveness in that first round, were told that, oh, you didn't apply correctly, or you didn't calculate your loan amount correctly. So a portion or all of your loan is now not going to be forgivable. We do not do that. That is why we have that conversation, because as good financial stewards in the community, we want to make sure that it's the right fit and that it's a benefit to you. So yes, we will have that conversation. Again, you do not have to be an expert in this program. You just have to be able to want to take the time and reach out and say, hey, am I qualified? And I can have that conversation with anybody all day to see if you or your clients are qualified. Again, more than happy to help with that.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have any other questions? No? I just want to.
I don't have any questions, but I want to thank you for the presentation today. It's something I can follow up on. So thank you.
I just want to kind of give Matt a plug here. He's actually my personal banker. And as an attorney, who runs a practice every day, Matt responds to my emails and my questions and my concerns within a matter of minutes. So, and I know how valuable that is, especially being a local bank. I've worked with PNC, M&T, Bank of America. I've almost worked with almost every major bank. And this is the first time where I've actually had a legitimate, real banking relationship with an actual bank manager, a vice president who will answer my questions and will be there and be supportive as we're going through this crazy process. So I can't say enough about Matt. He's just been wonderful and really truly is a wonderful advisor. So I don't know if that's helpful to any of you other attorneys out there, but it really truly is something that I value. So thank you, Matt, for doing this today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that. And I didn't touch on it, but I will do a plug here at the end. So not only do I do PPP loans, but I also do all traditional financing and banking needs. So if you have questions about buying real estate, I mean, any sort of business loan, any business banking or personal banking question, please reach out to me. Again, I've had probably, as I was talking, I was like, I think I'm over 16 years now as an experience, but both on the personal and business side. So anything I can help you with. If not, I can certainly put you in touch with somebody who can help you. Again, one of the other pieces, if you are looking for financing and other programs, especially in Baltimore County, Baltimore County also has a loan fund, a small business loan fund that lends outside of banking criteria. They are also the ones that will handle grant money as it comes out from the state. I know they're waiting for another grant to come out. I just spoke to them earlier in the week. So that is always a good resource to reach out to as well, especially as you have clients who are looking for capital and are unable to get that. There are other resources out there as well to just help those clients. And I have no problem making an introduction because, again, it's about doing what's right and right for the client. So if we're not a right fit, I certainly want to put them in touch with the person who is.
Thank you so much, Matt. Does anybody else have any other lingering questions? Matt, do you have any materials that I can email to our attendees and also to those who were unable to attend today?
Yes, I will send you over. I have a one-page sheet that I will send you over. It's got my contact information and also has a very brief summary of this. That is much easier to digest than this whole presentation. So I will get that over to you after this meeting.
Great.
This is John Beckley. I have a quick question that is thought of. Do the employees have to be full-time?
They do not. So they can be part-time, full-time. And if your loan amount is going to be under $150,000, that is not going to be something even the SBA is going to look at. So yes, so part-time, full-time. Even if you have seasonal clients, I don't know any attorneys that are seasonal, but if you have seasonal clients, they are able to apply as well, and they actually have a separate underwriting piece. So we actually take a snapshot in time when they are working. So this generally applies to landscapers, seasonal restaurants that we can look at as well. Again, they don't have to be full-time. We can look at that, and that's the plus of having a conversation with an individual. We can see what option is best for you. So good question.
Any other questions for Matt? Okay, wonderful. Thank you all so much for attending this afternoon, and I will get those materials out to you as soon as possible. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe out there. Stay out of the snow. I know you're all tempted to go out there and play in it, but you know.
I'm thinking about happy hour.
I know, right? Oh, also, mark your dates for March 25th at 5 o'clock. The webinar will be on ethics in estate planning. And we'll be having Richard Berwanger from Eccleston and Wolf be presenting on ethics in estate planning and elder law. So thank you all and have a terrific weekend. Thank you all again. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.